For many of us, the most important feature of a smartphone is the camera, and it ends up dragging a lot of us kicking and screaming into spending $1,000 or more on a smartphone just to make sure that the photos and videos are the best that they can be. But I'm here to tell you that you don't have to spend top dollar to get a great camera on your phone. You just have to pick the right phone. Here's how. My big recommendations starts with the Google Pixel 5 and Google Pixel 4a. You're getting amazing cameras, and they're also really capable in the video department. As a point and shoot interface, it's really easy to understand, and the shot-to-shot quality is superb for any price. But these are really affordable. Additionally, a little more on the spec-heavy side is the Galaxy S20 FE. Yes, it advertises lots of lenses and lots of megapixels, but the photos are actually really good as well, almost on par with the regular Galaxy S20 series. And Apple iPhone users don't need to be left out. You have the iPhone 12. It has a great 12 megapixel main camera and an ultra wide camera that are the exact same as the $200 more expensive iPhone 12 Pro. And that means you're getting amazing photos in day and night. You just miss out on the telephoto camera. When you go to buy a smartphone for the camera, you're gonna see a lot of specs and a lot of marketing thrown at you. You have to drill down through all of that and look at the very specific things that actually make a difference to the smartphone photography experience. The first thing you need to know is that aperture matters. That's that F number or f-stop. You want the lowest number possible because that lets in more light to the sensor. And that's not just important for night mode, that's important for all kinds of photos. And speaking of, night mode photography is extremely important. If your camera doesn't have a dedicated night mode, then you should look elsewhere. Every high-end camera has a night mode, and those processes are coming down to lower-end cameras. You need to find one that's good. And none of that matters if your camera doesn't have OIS or optical image stabilization. It sounds just like what it is. It stabilizes the camera so that when your hand is shaking, it can still take clear and crisp photos. That's extremely important for these advanced processing modes like night mode or a time-lapse mode, because you want to make sure that the camera can stack as many different shots as possible so that they all get blended together to produce one great photo. Some of the extra bonuses that you should look for, but shouldn't necessarily drive your purchase decision, are things like an ultra-wide camera or a telephoto camera. A lot of cameras are starting to roll out multiple lenses and multiple sensors kind of as a default. And that means that in addition to the regular or wide lens, you're getting an ultra-wide camera for kind of that fisheye perspective that's really interesting, but it's not necessarily necessary for taking everyday photos. On the flip side, here are two main things that smartphone companies are really trying to market against, but don't actually make a huge difference in producing greater photos for your everyday shooting. The first one is really high megapixel counts. You're gonna see 48 megapixels thrown out like it's just the new standard. Some are going well north of 100 megapixels. And that sounds amazing because you think higher resolution means finer photos, but that's not the case. Some of the best smartphones for photography of all kinds are actually just using a 12 megapixel sensor still. Phones like the iPhone 12 and the Google Pixel 5 and Google Pixel 4a are taking amazing photos with that lower resolution because it's all about the size of the sensor and, once again, optical image stabilization, wide apertures, and processing. That all makes more of a difference for your photos than the resolution. The same goes for a lot of extra processing options like portrait mode or beauty mode or different lighting effects. Now, it's nice to have these things to play around with or to get extra shooting options, but they're not necessary for just getting your great day-to-day photos that you rely on. You don't need an extra portrait mode if the camera has a wide aperture and already has great natural background blur. And you don't need to beautify someone's face if you just get a nice, crisp, rich, colorful photo the first time with the regular camera.